Okay, so this is the System 1 review. All right, so for number 1, we have to graph each of the following. So for ones that do not have solutions, the lines would have to be parallel. So I'm just going to draw 2 parallel lines here. Okay. One that has one solution is going to be where you have 2 lines on your graph that intersect at one point. So it would look something like that. It doesn't matter if yours doesn't look exactly like mine, you just have to have 2 lines that intersect at one point. And then one that has infinitely many solutions, this is where you're only going to see one graph because our equations would have to be exactly the same and they are laying on top of each other. Okay. Number 2 says, which of the following is the best estimate of the solution to the system of equations shown on the graph? So I'm having to estimate here. I see that it's going past -1, so I'm going to say, if I look over here, it looks like it could be either C or A, so I'm going to cross out B and D because of the -1.5, and then when I look to see how far it's going up past the 4, so it has to be A at 4.5. Okay, number 3. It says some values from 2 linear equations are shown in the tables. What is the solution to the system of equations represented by these tables? So this is where I'm looking for the same x and y value. So when I go through, I see it won't be the 0 because this one has a -1, this one has a 6. At 3 I have 8, and 3 I have 8, so therefore that tells me my solution has to be 3, 8. Number 4 says, what would be the reasonable length and width of a rectangular below? It says the length of the perimeter is 4 times its width, and the perimeter of the rectangle is 40 inches. So here we have to use our formula for the perimeter. So P equals 2 times the length, because there's 2 sides that are the length of a rectangle, and then 2 times W because there's 2 widths that you have to add all together. So when I plug this in, I would actually have 40 equals 2L plus 2W for that equation, and then where it says the length of the rectangle is 4 times its width, that's L equals 4W. Okay, so now I'm going to use substitution to solve it. So here's my loaner, and here is its value. So this is where I'm going to make my little boxes. So I have the standard one, the solved one, and the standard to check. So here I'm going to plug in the 2L plus 2W equals 40. And then I have L equals 4W for the solved. And then again, my 2L plus 2W equals 40. So this is what I'm going to be replacing, the L. So when I rewrite it, I'm going to have 2 times 4W, because that's the value of my L, plus 2W equals 40. And now to solve it, I'm going to distribute the 2, so that gives me 8W plus 2W equals 40. And combine my like terms, which gives me 10W equals 40. So now I'm going to divide everything by 10, and I'm going to get that W equals 4. So I'm now going to use this value of W to replace this W here and solve for L. So that means I would have that L equals 4 times 4, which means it is 16. So now I want to check my values. So now this time over here I'm going to replace both the L with its value and W with its value to see if it comes out correctly. So that means I would have 2 times, my L value is 16, plus 2 times my W, which is 4, equals 40. So 2 times 16 gives me 32, plus 2 times 4 gives me 8, and 32 plus 8 equals 40. That checks out, so that means my solution is 4 and 16, so it would be C. All right. Number 5, it says Y1 represents the amount of money Kevin has in his bank account after X weeks, and Y2 represents the amount of money Andrew has in her account after X weeks. So after how many weeks do Kevin and Andrew have the same amount of money? So we're looking for X then, but we have to find where Y1 and Y2 are the same. So when I come over here to the table, if you look right here, you can see at 4, they both have a value of 65, so therefore the answer is D at 4 weeks. Okay, going on to number 6 now. Alright, so it says Jason decided to use substitution method to solve the system. And then, which of the following shows the correct value of X for the solution to the system? Okay, so to solve it, we are going to take our loaner here and replace it with its value. And this will actually allow us just to go ahead and solve out for X. So we won't have to do as much as we usually have to do when we have to find X and Y. So in the 3X plus 2Y equals 15. So remember, I'm going to be replacing my Y value here. So then I would have 3X plus 2 times my Y value. Oops, you can't see what I'm doing, I'm sorry. So you can see up here I have it in standard form. I circle my Y because that's what I'm replacing. So I'm writing it out again, and instead of having the Y, now I'm going to put in the Y value, which is a negative X plus 4 equals 15. And now I'm ready to solve it out, so I first need to distribute. So that gives me 3x, and 2 times negative x gives me a negative 2x, and 2 times 4 gives me 8, 15. So now I can combine my like terms here. So 3x minus 2x gives me x plus 8 equals 15. And now to solve for x, I just need to subtract 8 from both sides. So now I get that x equals 7. So my answer would be B. Okay, so going on to number 7. It says, what would be the correct substitution step to solve the following system using substitution? So first I'm going to recognize my loaner here, and then put parentheses around its value, because that's what's going to replace my x in this top equation. So up here, let me rewrite this, 4x plus 14 equals 6y. I'm going to replace this x right here. So now I would have 4 times my x value, which is negative 3y plus 5, and then plus 14 equals 6y. And then I can see that C is the correct answer. Okay, number 8. So it says, which graph can be used to find the solution to the system of equations below? So I see that one of them is already in my slope-intercept form, this one right here. But this one, I'm going to go ahead and change it to slope-intercept form as well, so that I can plug these two y values into my calculator and determine from there which one of these graphs matches. So the 2x plus y equals 3. Remember, I want to get it into that y equals mx plus b form. So first I need to subtract my x term from both sides in this case, so I can zero it out over here. And then I get y equals negative 2x plus 3. And since there's nothing in front of y, I don't need to divide anything. It's already set up now the way I need it. So on the calculator, we're going to go to y equals. Actually, first let me do this. Alright, so y equals. I guess I'll put this one in here first. So that's negative 2x plus 3. And y2, so negative over 4x minus 4. Now I can look at the graph. And you can see it's intersecting down here at this point, so that means that B would be my correct answer. Okay, so number 9, we have to graph the system and determine what our solution is for the system. So for my first one here, I see that my M equals 3, and then my B equals -1. So that means I'm going to begin at -1, and then since my slope is 3, that means I'm going to go up 3 and right 1. And then when I go backwards, I'm going to go down 3 and left 1. And then I'm just going to use a straight edge here to draw out the rest of my line. Here. Okay, so now for the next one, I see that my M equals -3 and my B equals 11. So I'm going to say that that is going to be about like where my starting point is going to be for 11, and then this time I'm going to go down 3 and right 1. Again, use my straight edge here to draw out my line. And from here I can see that it's intersecting at 2, 5. So D would be my correct answer. Alright, so flipping over to the back side, the number 10. This one says, Marcy and Eric are saving money to buy Christmas presents for their siblings. Marcy starts with $2 and earns $10 per week tutoring her cousin. Eric makes $15 each week pet sitting for a neighbor, but he owes his mom $8. And then it wants us to write a system of equation that represent the situation. So, for Marcy, let's see, I'm going to have y equals, so right here it says she's going to start at 2, I'm going to say plus 2, and earns $10 per week. So I know since this has the per, that's where my x is attached. So there's one of my equations. And then for Eric, let's see, it says that he's going to make $15 each week. So there's my keyword to know that this one is the one that's going to be attached to the x. But he owes his mom $8, so we know we're going to have to take 8 out, or subtract 8 from it to pay his mom back. So these would be my systems of equations. So therefore my answer would be, not that one, right here, A. Okay, so number 11. It says the line graphed on the grid represents the first of 2 equations in a system of linear equations. Graph the second line. If the graph of the second equation in the system passes through the points 1, -4, and 5, 8, which statement is true? So all I'm going to do is plot these 2 points. So here's 1, and then I'm going to go down 4. So there's 1, -4. And then my other point was at 5, 8. And now I just want to connect my points. What are y'all doing? For what?
The 4, 6, and 6.
You're saying if it's true or not. True or false? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Because tomorrow is y'all's assessment. Okay, so looking at the point where they intersected, looks like this is at 3, 2. So the only solution to the system is 3, 2. So my answer would be B. Okay, so number 12. Estimate the solution to the system of equations shown on the graph. So I'm going to see exactly where this is at. So I know I'm going over 1, 2. So it's going to be, my X value is going to be between 2 and 3. So when I go over here, that only leaves me with B, because 2.5 is the only number that's going to fall between 2 and 3 and out of all the X values that they're giving me. And I can even see that on the y-axis, it's not going, or from the y-axis, it's not going all the way down to 2. So it's also going in between the -1 and -2. Okay, so 13. It says a candy company sells cases of chocolate bars. The company has fixed costs of $30,000, and each case of chocolate bar costs an additional $5 to make. The company sells each case for $10. The graph of a system of linear equations representing this company's cost and revenue for manufacturing and selling X cases of chocolate bars is shown below. How many cases of chocolate bars will this company need to sell in order for cost and revenue to be equal? Okay, so when we look at the graph, we can see that they're going to intersect, but we can't see at what point they are. So all we need to do is take our calculator, go to y equals, and use the equations that they've given us here. So 3,000 plus 5x, and then 10x. So I know that my current settings on my window are not going to work in order for me to see where they're intersecting at. So I know I'm going to have to change it. But also from here I can see that it's only needing all the positive values. So as far as my x minimum, I'm just going to put 0. And then for my maximum, I'm going to go ahead and do like 10,000. Since it's telling us down here that everything is in thousands, and even over here for the y values. So again, for the y minimum, since I don't need any negative values, I'm going to say 0. And then for my maximum, I'm going to do 100,000. So now when I graph it, I can see, hopefully see where they're intersecting at. And I can, so now I can hit my second trace, and then 5 for intersect, and enter 3 times. And so this is what I'm looking for, X, for the number of cases, so 6,000. So 6,000 cases. Okay, so it says Kevin has $4 in quarters and dimes. He has 22 coins in all. The following system of equations can be used to represent the situation. What do Q and D represent? Well, since his $4 is made up of quarters and dimes, it means that his Q has to be quarters, and it would be the number of quarters. And then D would be the number of dimes. And that's it for that one. All right. Come over here to this one. So this one says Nancy likes to bowl and wants to compare total cost to find the bowling alley that offers the better deal. She has 2 bowling alleys to consider. Cypress Alley, which charges $10 for shoe rental and $1 per game. So let's go ahead and write out the equation for that. So y equals, so it's $10 for the shoe rental and $1 per game. So that means I'm going to have my 1x, or you could put x there. And then it's going to be plus 10. And then for Jersey Lanes, it says it charges $4 for shoe rental and $2 per game. So again, since this has the per, we know that that's going to be attached to the x. So 2x plus the $4 for shoes. Okay, so number 15, and we're going to use this statement up here for problems 15 through 17. So 15 says, what would be the appropriate assignment of variables to represent the situation? Well, right here, since my slope says $1 per game, I know that these x's have to represent the number of games. Okay, and then what this whole thing is figuring out for me, and what y is putting out, is the total cost to bowl. Okay, so 16 is asking which is the most appropriate system of equations to represent the situation. There was an error on the test. You're not going to actually find any correct answers, but we know what they are because we already wrote them out up here. So none of these are going to work. So if you can just draw your error up there, show me where you wrote them out, and I know that you have the correct ones. So 17 says, after changing their prices to bowling alleys mentioned above, charge their customers according to the following functions, where N represents the number of games bowled and C represents the total cost. So here we have that C equals 4 plus 2.50 N, and then C equals 3.50 N. According to these new functions, for how many games would the cost to bowl be the same at either alley, and how much is that cost? Okay, so if we look up here, if you remember, we already said that X was the number of games and Y was the total cost. Looks like this is Y and this is Y, so therefore this is X and this is X. And all I'm going to do is use my calculator. So let me reset it. So Y equals 4 plus 2.50X. And then my other one is 3.50X. I'm going to go to graph. Let's see if it'll show me where it intersected at, even though I can't really see it. Oh, it is. So it's showing me that at 4 games, they both cost $14. So therefore, my answer would be D. Okay, so for number 18, we are going to have to use substitution to find our X value here. So here is my loaner, and here is its value. So I'm going to replace that Y here in this equation. So when I do that, I get 6X plus 2 times the Y value, which is 2X, equals 20. So now I can distribute this, and I get 6X plus 4X equals 20. So now I'll combine my like terms here. 6X plus 4X gives me 10X equals 20. And now to solve for X, I just divide everything by 10. So therefore X equals 2. Okay, so 2, all bubbled in right. Okay, number 19. Again, I'm going to have to use the same method, my substitution method. So here's my loaner, and here's its value. And you can see it's asking for X, but since I'm substituting this one in, my X value into this one, I'm going to first solve for Y, and then I'm going to have to solve for X as well. So I'm going to go ahead and make my chart. So my standard would be the 3X plus 2Y equals 25. And then my solved is going to be X equals Y minus 7. And then again, my 3X plus 2Y equals 25, so we can check our answer. Alright, so I'm going to replace this X right here with its value. So when I do that, I get that it's 3 times Y minus 7 plus 2Y equals 25. Now I'm going to solve for Y. I'm going to distribute. So that gives me 3Y minus 21 plus 2Y equals 25. I combine my like terms here. That gives me 5Y minus 21 equals 25. Now I'm going to add 21 to both sides so I can isolate that variable. So that zeroes out. We're going to come up here. So then I would have 5Y equals 46. I'm going to divide everything by 5. And I'll get that Y equals 46 over 5, or we can put it as a decimal, which would be 9.2. Let's use that one instead of the fraction. Alright, so now I'm going to replace my Y with its value of 9.2. So that would be X equals 9.2 and then minus 7. So I don't have anything to distribute here, so I can go ahead and find the difference here. So when I subtract 7 from 9.2, I'm going to get that X equals 2.2. Okay, so now I'm going to use these values for x and y and plug them into my standard equation again to make sure that they come out to be correct. So 3 is going to be multiplied to 2.2, my x value, plus 2 times my y value, which is the 9.2, that equals 25. So now I need to distribute. So that would be 6.6 plus 18.4 equals 25. So now I can combine 18.4 plus 6.6, and that gives me 25 equals 25. Checks out, so therefore my x value is 2.2. 2.2. And then that is it. So don't forget to turn this in tomorrow for a grade and the 5 extra points on the test.